Riley had always been more than just a K9. He was a protector, a loyal partner, and a hero in every sense of the word. For years, he had served alongside Officer Jake Carter, patrolling the streets, sniffing out danger and chasing down criminals. Their bond was unbreakable, two partners who trusted each other with their lives. But then everything changed. One fateful night, a call came through the radio. A robbery in progress, armed suspects. The situation was dangerous, but that had never stopped Jake and Riley before. As they arrived at the scene, the suspects attempted to flee, and in the chaos, gunfire erupted. Jake barely had time to react when he saw one of the men raise his weapon. Before he could move, Riley lunged forward, placing himself between his partner and the bullet. The shot rang out, piercing the night. Riley collapsed. Jake's world stopped. He could hear officers shouting, sirens wailing, but none of it mattered. He dropped to his knees beside his partner, pressing his hands against the wound, his voice trembling. "Jake, stay with me, buddy. Don't you dare leave me." The medics arrived, but they weren't just there for Jake. They were there for Riley too. Every officer in the department knew what Riley had done that night. He wasn't just a K9, he was family. Jake refused to leave his side, even as they rushed him into emergency surgery. Hours passed, and every second felt like an eternity. Finally, a veterinarian stepped out, exhaustion written all over his face. "Veterinarian, VO. He's strong, he's going to make it." Jake had never been one to cry, but that night he did. Riley survived, but the injury ended his career. He could no longer run through the streets or take down criminals like before. He was given an honorary retirement, and as much as Jake wanted to take him home, regulations wouldn't allow it. Instead, Riley was sent to a specialized rehabilitation center for retired K9s, where he would spend his remaining years in peace. Jake visited whenever he could, but as time passed, his job pulled him further and further away. It had been over 3 years since he had last seen his partner, and the weight of that absence was something he carried with him every single day. Then one morning Jake received a call that stopped him in his tracks. "Dr. Miller." "Officer Carter, this is Dr. Miller from the K9 Rehab Center. I think you should come down here." "Jake, is Riley okay?" "Dr. Miller, just come." Without a second thought, Jake jumped in his car and drove. When he arrived at the center, he was met with knowing smiles from the staff. They led him outside, where a familiar figure stood on unsteady legs, Riley. His fur had grayed around his muzzle, his movements slower than before, but when he saw Jake, something changed. His ears perked, his tired eyes lit up, and then he moved. It started as a walk, then a trot, and then, despite the years that had passed and the injury that had once taken him down, he ran. Jake barely had time to brace himself before Riley crashed into him, knocking him to the ground. For a moment they were frozen in time, man and dog reunited after years apart. Tears stung Jake's eyes as he buried his face in Riley's fur. "Jake, I missed you, buddy." Riley let out a sound between a bark and a whimper, pressing his head against Jake's chest. The officers who had gathered to witness the reunion wiped at their own eyes. It was a moment none of them would ever forget, a testament to a bond that time, distance, and even injury could never break. And in that moment, Jake knew one thing for sure. He wasn't leaving without his partner this time.